Simon Vigar speaking from Sydney earlier. Well, let's get some reaction to this news now. Joining me is Camilla Tominey, Associate Editor for the Daily Telegraph, and also with me is the Royal Historian, Broadcaster and author Kate Williams. Good evening to you both. Now, when did you guys know? Because I have to say, Friday in the newsroom, we were speculating when we saw Meghan.
Everyone was, weren't they, I think, after the outfit. Meghan seemed quite buttoned up, and there was some looseness to the coat, which everyone thought. And also, she didn't linger around much outside St George's Chapel, did she?
And there was a very interesting conversation that I saw going on with Princess Anne in the chapel, in which Meghan and Anne was sort of discussing Meghan's stomach, and I thought,
maybe they're talking about breakfast.
Or breakfast, a discussion about fashion, or it could be
the big one.
It could be the big one.
To be fair, we'd been speculating ever since they got engaged and indeed walked down the aisle, to be honest, hadn't we? Because they're a couple of a certain age, and I think they themselves had made no secret of the fact they wanted to start a family. They even mentioned it in the engagement interview, so I think it's not really much of a surprise, but it's a happy, happy one.
That's right. So when it came to the actual announcement, they wanted to make sure that they didn't overshadow, of course, Eugenie's wedding. So they told members of the royal family, the senior members, is that right? But they didn't tell anybody else.
Well, what we're told is that the royal family could share their congratulations on Friday. So we don't know necessarily whether they'd already been told, perhaps by email, and then met up to just talk about it on Friday. I don't think it's true that necessarily she made the announcement in the midst of Eugenie's wedding reception. No. But certainly I do think that they probably would have announced a bit earlier, possibly because she's obviously well over the 12-week mark now, but they didn't want to overshadow the wedding, which would have been a shame.
Oh, so we do know she's well over 12 weeks then?
Probably not well over, around 12 weeks.
Scan,
we think they've had the scan and they're kind of in that safe second trimester zone.
And they had to leave the reception early,
well,
is that
I
right,
reported on this, at the weekend for the Sunday Telegraph, that they had to leave early because, we now know she was pregnant and probably very tired. They were going to go to the evening do, and equally they flew off to Australia late on Saturday afternoon. And I think Eugenie kind of thought, well, it would be lovely for Harry to be there. Funny enough, they're the closest cousins. They're very, very good friends, and they've got the same kind of mischievous sense of humour and a great rapport. So I think she might have been slightly upset, but completely understood, not least because Meghan was pregnant, but also because they had bags packed and were ready to go off on this huge 24-hour flight and a massive tour. 76 engagements in 16 days.
It's incredible, isn't it? And we were already, as royal watchers and correspondents, already stunned by how many engagements they were going to have. Yes. But on top of that, with Meghan being pregnant, it really does suggest that she's going to have, a very active pregnancy, I think, and probably only take a very short maternity leave.
I mean, do we know how she is at all, Camilla? Because obviously with Kate, she had quite a difficult pregnancy, particularly with the first one.
The hyperemesis.
Indeed, yes. Do you know how Meghan is? Do we know if she's going to be fit and strong to carry that out the tour in full?
First of all, we haven't had any indication that she hasn't been well, and equally, obviously, she's been pregnant for the last 3 months, and they've been quite busy, the Sussexes. Remember, she did the Grenfell cookbook. She also did another engagement by herself involving an Oceans Alliance initiative. She's been out with Harry. She obviously went to this wedding, albeit not to the evening thing, and now they're going ahead with the tour. I know Simon there in the report was talking about the Zika virus, but actually they're including Tonga, which is where it might have been prevalent. So again, I think they're basically just saying, look, business as usual. The epitome of the Queen's mantra, keep calm and carry on.
Yes. Is this traditional? Is this normal?
Yes, I agree. I think that obviously most women do work through their pregnancies, and Meghan is like any of those modern women. She's working on, she's obviously in good health. The doctors are obviously happy. They've obviously already discussed the fact about the Zika virus, and they feel happy about going there. So I do think that it's obviously great that she's in much better health than poor Kate was, because she obviously did suffer, and they had to announce early because of her health. It's clear that they didn't have to announce for that reason. It was more along the lines of, well, they thought that probably someone was going to guess at some point. There's only so many files you can carry in front of you.
That's true. That's very true. There would have been questions.
And Camilla, you mentioned that even during the engagement there was talk about having a baby when they announced their engagement. But did we expect a baby so soon? Gosh, they only got married 5 months ago.
Well, I did, because I mean, speaking as a mother and not as a journalist here, I think when you're 36 and you've married, met the love of your life, and indeed Prince Harry's 34, you probably do want to get cracking and starting a family. And equally, they had done a lot of interviews individually talking about it. I remember interviewing Harry in 2010, I think. He was only in his 20s, talking about how much he loved children, he wanted to be a dad. There was this idea that he wanted to have a family without getting married. I think journalists at the time pointed out, don't think you can do that.
Not as a royal,
But he followed up with that in New Zealand a few years ago. He said, I want to settle down, I want to be like my brother. I think there's been this element where he's been living next door to the Cambridges at Kensington Palace, thinking, I want this for my myself. And of course, Meghan came along. It was all a bit of a whirlwind. And now they're, you know, about to become three.
The whirlwind
Now
continues.
expecting a baby.
And who knows, it could even be twins.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, now
Looking forward.
Twitter will go into meltdown if that happens, Kate.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about it a little bit later, though. Camilla and Kate, guys, going to stick with me for the rest of the programme, at least for the first half of the programme. As I said, Kate and Camilla are still with us. And Kate, let's talk about the significance of this baby. Will this baby be the first mixed-race royal child?
Yes, that is correct. It's the first mixed-race biracial royal child, and of course this little boy or girl is going to be 7th in line to the throne, so a long way from the throne. But if everyone in front abdicates, and stranger things have happened in the royal family, then that would be our first biracial monarch. And I do think it's very meaningful. It is a very significant moment. It is time that the royal family reflects the diversity of the country over which it reigns.
I mean, Kate, sorry, Camilla even, and when we are looking at this significance, what could this potentially do in maybe opening up the royal family? I mean, there was lots of talk when they were getting married, but now there's a baby, there's, I said, a mixed-race child. How does that change things?
Well, I think generally the younger children and the younger members of the royal family, kind of from William and Kate down, have re-energised interest in the monarchy. Certainly the little Cambridges and indeed the little Sussex, when he or she comes along, will be an equally important draw for people. And I think, yes, there is this sense that actually these days the monarchy is a bit more touchable than it used to be. We had that huge outpouring from William and Harry last year to mark the 20th anniversary of Princess Diana's death, talking about their feelings, their emotions, talking about mental health. And we wouldn't have seen that during the Queen's era. You know, she's very much of her generation, although it's worth pointing out, isn't it, Kate, that actually HM is the ultimate moderniser. If you think about what's happened to the monarchy from when she first took the reign in the 50s all the way to today, and you see how much of an outpouring of Buckingham Palace there is on social media, the engagement, the fact that lots of people can always visit Buckingham Palace, it's become the people's palace, it's not this stuffy place for VIPs, I think reflects modern life, and that's what the royals should do.
And Kate, do we know whether the child or children, you threw in twins in
You
there,
never know. Triplets, who knows?
would they be princess, duke, duchess? How does that work?
Well, currently the tradition is that they would not. They would be lady or lord, and the little boy would be Earl of Dumbarton. But it is up to the Queen. And so, for example, the children of Princess Margaret, the sister of the Queen, they did not bear titles, but the Queen could make the decision to give them titles of prince and princess. And you know, I rather suspect, we know that Harry's a real favourite of hers, I rather suspect that they will receive titles, and certainly this little child probably will be prince or princess. But it's all in the Queen's gift.
That will be fitting, won't it? Because obviously the Queen, when Prince Charles takes the throne, his sons will become ever more important in the whole scheme of things. I think there's an acceptance that the Cambridges and the Sussexes are the so-called Fab Four.
They are.
And therefore their children, I think, will want to have equal billing. I know they're not as far up in the pecking order as George and Charlotte and Louis, but I think because they're going to be brought up together at Kensington Palace, it would make some sense, a little bit like the Waleses and the Yorks of yesteryear, for those children, those cousins, to have equal status.
Yes, I agree. And just look at Princess Eugenie. I mean, she's 9th in line to the throne, so, and she will be knocked down further, but still she has the princess title. And I think certainly the public will expect it. Like you say, the Sussexes are incredibly popular, and I've noticed this with the royal tours, that if there's a child going on a royal tour, it doubles the press, because the little Cambridges are now seen as more of a photo op than their parents.
Even in utero, when it comes to the Australian one.
Yes, a little. So the Sussex prince or princess will get a lot of attention. I think people will expect, it to be a princess. I think Alice, I saw, was the front runner for one of the names. Alice and Albert are the front runners. So let's see. It could be more of an American name.
But as I said, it has been really gloomy. Winter is definitely feeling like it's around the corner. Autumn's kicking in. So we thought maybe baby news would be good news. So we decided to take it to people on the streets to find out how they feel about the prospect of a royal baby. Oh, it really is good news. I mean, when you think about, gosh, Brexit, the divisions in the country, climate change, you need some good news.
What will come first, though, Claudia? Brexit or the baby?
Yes, well,
news desks across the land will be torn.
My money's on the baby.
Well, apparently this morning one of the major searches on Google was, when is spring? Because everyone was trying to decide exactly when spring was, because they will never give us a due date.
No,
the royal family never do give us a due date, because I feel that one of the reasons why they don't is, obviously one never knows when a baby will be born. They confound their due dates, but also no one wants anyone working out the conception date, which they did, of course, with the New Zealand Prime Minister. But sometime in spring, so Brexit and the baby, it'll
March
be
the 29th.
busy times.
Put your money down just in case.
What kind of mummy do you think that Meghan is going to be? And I say what kind of mummy in terms of how involved are the royal family in terms of the nannies that you're supposed to have? Do you have a choice in terms of the kind of nannies that you can have?
They try to have a balance. The Cambridges have Maria Borrello. She's been with them since George was a little baby, and she's a Norland-trained nanny and kind of the top spec sort of Mary Poppins type ideal that you'd want, which high net worth individuals can afford. But equally, they try and be hands-on. They try and tuck their own children at night. It's not like the old days where children were largely brought up on the nursery floor.
Yes, absolutely. And they do take them on tour before they start at school. We've seen that very importantly. The Queen had to leave Prince Charles behind. Now they don't. So I think Meghan's going to be a really hands-on mother. And the gentleman on your VT there just saying that he thinks it's great news for her because of family questions she's had, I think will really... I think obviously we're expecting Doria to come over and do a lot of grandmothering. I mean, she can't do quite as much as Carol Middleton because she can't be here all the time because she
Will
obviously
Doria
has to go
move over?
I was going to ask, do the Markles know? Does her dad know?
Well, apparently, according to reports on social media, they didn't tell him because they didn't want it to leak. So whether he's finding out through... Although I think we can possibly understand that. There's been a lot of leaks from the Markle side of the family, and they want to avoid that. But will Doria move over to London? That's the next question to ask, to be closer to her daughter and grandchild.
I want to see what kind of mum Meghan's going to be. She's shutting her own door. She might turn around and turn down nannies altogether.
She
Who
might
knows?
do.
Crazy talk, I know.
We shall see.
Kate, Camilla, good talking to you both.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.